Hi, my name is Riley Parker, and this is my presentation for my video game design called Panda Powers. It is December 3rd, 2023, and let's get into it. So, my game is a math puzzle game where it's a combination between solving math questions and kind of solving a puzzle as well as fighting enemies. So that will make more sense as I get into describing it to you. So basically it's going to be set up to have at least 10 levels in each zone. And by zone, I mean like biome or location that will have a boss and the 10 levels. So each location will have 10 levels, and there will be two parts of each level, and I'll get into that on the next slide. But this is kind of an example of the 10 levels and the progression system. So it'll have levels 1 through 10 on kind of a pathway, and you'll have to unlock the second one by completing the first. So in order to unlock like 2, you'll have to complete number 1, but both parts of number 1. And that'll make more sense on the next slide. So the parts of each level, there's going to be 2 parts of each level. And the 2 parts are the math portion and the fight portion. During the math portion, the player will have to answer a series of math questions. They'll have to get 3 right in a row in order to move on to the second portion. But if they get 1 question wrong within that 3, they'll have to start back at 0 and then move on from there. So they'll have to start back at 0, answer 1 question correctly, answer another question correctly, and answer the third question correctly in order to move on to the fight portion. And then once they've done that, once they get to the fight portion, the player will have to traverse among the 2D world to fight the enemies, eliminate all the enemies, and exit the maze. So it'll have an entrance where you'll enter the maze. There will be 4 to 5 enemies depending on the level number, and you will have to eliminate the enemies using melee attacks and kind of avoiding taking damage from those, and eliminate all of them to open the gate to enter or exit the game mode, and move on to the next level. This is an example of the math question portion where there's going to be, so this is the screen right here. There's going to be a math question in the middle with about 5 options of answers for the player to choose from. And up in this corner, I didn't write it in on this. I probably should have. But up in the corner, there will be a timer that's 30 seconds. They'll have 30 seconds to solve the math question, pick the right answer or what they think the right answer is, and then click submit, which will be in this bottom corner. And then what they'll do after that is after they get 3 in a row, there will also be under the timer right here a counter that says 1, 2, 3, and it'll highlight it as they correctly answer the question. So anyway, moving on. After they complete 3 in a row, they'll move on to the fight portion where it unlocks the kind of fun aspect of this game to keep the player entertained and also learning at the same time. So the part 2 is the fight portion. It'll look something like this. This is an example of the fight portion. So it'll be a maze-like 2D map, sort of like this, to where there's an entrance, the exit will be blocked, and then the player will have to enter, fight the enemies, which I've kind of outlined as stars. So there's a star here, star here, star here, and star here. So those kind of represent the enemies. So they will traverse this map, fighting these enemies, and once they've eliminated all of them, it unlocks the gate for the exit. And then they can exit, and then they'll move on to level 2, which starts with the math portion. Anyway, down here, is the keys that you'll use while playing this on a PC or using a keyboard. So it uses keys A, S, D, W, and E. So W moves your character up, S moves your character down, E is the interact button, which is also the melee button. So when you're fighting these enemies, you'll hit E to hit them and deal damage to them. And then you'll try to kind of stay away from them because you can take damage. But anyway, A moves your character left and D moves your character right. And then that is basically it for the fight portion. And then the progression, so each player will have their account and it'll kind of keep track of their progression as they play the game. So what I mean by that is if they complete 5 levels and they have an account, it'll track that, it'll keep it at 5 levels, and then when they join the game the next time, they can continue from level 5 and move on. Also, the account, like the progression as far as cosmetics go and as unlockables go, each level will have like a cosmetic attached to it that has something to do with the boss that you're fighting or the biome that you're in. So for example, like in the desert, if you eliminated all the enemies of one level, you would unlock something desert-like to put on your character. And these cosmetics will show off the progression and allow the player to customize their character to be more to reflect them in the game, which is the purpose of avatar in the game. And then on the next slide, we have some examples of that. So in this first picture of the panda with kind of not a lot of cosmetics on, this kind of represents the base version, and then as you unlock cosmetics and equip them to your character, you'll look more professional, more decked out, and it'll kind of show off your progression in a visual form. And these are unlockable through the levels. So like this one, you've unlocked quite a few levels, and you've got your panda kind of looking like they're kind of ready for battle and things like that. And then the game story. So the game story is like the whole storyline is based around a panda, which is the player bringing peace to the world by defeating evil animals from many different places. The player is the hero in this game, solving the math questions and fighting enemies to reach the final level and take out the boss from that specific zone. And each boss will be animal-based. There'll be like an animal villain, so like snakes or something along those lines. And on the next slide, we kind of cover that. And this is the game world. So like I was saying in the last slide, these are some examples of possible bosses. So for example, like for a desert biome, we could have a snake as the boss right here, where on the 10th or 12th level, whichever one is the final level, would be a boss fight against an animal. And the game world is going to be the fantasy world around animals, to where animals are running the community, animals are the bosses, animals are the villains, and things like that. So the whole world will revolve around the fantasy world of animals. And that is basically the whole game, just the 2 parts of each level and progression and unlocking cosmetics, as well as increasing difficulty in the math questions and increasing the knowledge of the player in math. So thank you for watching, and hope you like the game.